So welcome to our webinar, and we're going to be going through the winners and losers of peak. We're going to get some insight from Don, retail partner at KPMG, and Clifton, who's an e-commerce entrepreneur who runs Natural Baby Shower and a significant online business in the baby sector. So we'll get those guys on in a minute, but before we do that, I just wanted to sort of go through who Ask Bosco are. Welcome to those who are new to our business. We are part of an agency that helps people in-house called Modo25, and we're a technology partner that is shaping the future of marketing and e-commerce. And there is a slightly bigger picture behind our business, and that is that we support a charity called One More Child, and One More Child is actually run by a chap called Bosco. And I'm super proud that about 60% of our team at Ask Bosco and Modo25 actually donate some of their money every month in there for salary sacrifice to help change the lives of those less well off than us. But it's not about that today. It's all about what happened in peak, and we help hundreds of retailers and hundreds of agencies help their clients report better, help make better decisions using our clever AI marketing platform. And we will share a link later if you want to get a plan, a budget plan, a free budget plan for 2025. So Don and Clifton, do you want to turn your cameras on, and we'll start the chat.
Hello.
Hello, how are we doing?
Hi. All right, not too bad.
Good, good. Well, thank you first of all for doing this. If you want to ask Don and Clifton any questions during the session, you can in the comments section below or just in the Q&A. Or if you want to ask anything specific, we can answer them live. We will also send you a recording of this afterwards, so make it available. We are scheduled for just half an hour, but knowing how chatty both Clifton and Don can be, we may overrun, so feel free to stay on. But if you don't have the chance to stay on, we will forward round notes and also a recording. So I suppose Don's going to set the scene a little bit. I will be your sort of Chris Whitty, and you can just go next slide. So
Perfect. Well, should we just canter through with a bit of the sort of backwards looking and then some thoughts going forwards and some data points.
Perfect.
First bit I always start with the Christmas trading bit is, look, when you're reading the papers and looking at what's being reported, and no, I haven't taken you back in time. That should say 2024, obviously not 2021. But we'll come back to this when we go to the BRC numbers. Black Friday numbers were included in December reported sales in the BRC, which they weren't the year before. So you've got an inflated increase in growth through the BRC numbers, which skews the numbers a bit. And all reported numbers, it's always light for light sales compared to total sales. What are they reporting? There is no real governance around trading periods that are being reported. I think you've probably seen quite a lot more people reporting 3-month periods rather than, so that covers of October through to December rather than December. You can choose the dates, so they're all different. There's also this conversation about remember, sales is sales. It's not margin. It's not how much profit you made. And we've also got to focus on the fact, I think, that there was persistent inflation through the UK in 2024. So anybody that's in 3% or lower probably hasn't shifted, and price inflation, I think, was slightly higher in many parts of retail than 3%. So there's a value volume piece here. And just remember as well that good news generally travels and bad news doesn't. So if you're a private company, you don't have to report. So if you've got private companies reporting, they're only going to report good news. So click on to the next bit. So the BRC numbers, loads of data points that you can look at your leisure. Essentially, be warned that 3.1% is skewed because of the Black Friday being included. But the key points to note, and they've been consistent throughout the year, is food sales have basically propped up growth in spend, and much of that has been driven by price, not volume. So we're spending a bit more, but we're not buying more stuff because the stuff is costing us more. And non-discretionary spend has been challenged throughout the year, and continued to get challenged through Christmas. There's also a piece here, I think, around the fact that certain categories have shown slightly greater resilience. But I'm going to come back to this, like health and beauty, for instance. But Clifton, you'll probably have perspective on that. But still, we're seeing some divergence within category and I think within scale. But I'll touch back on that when I go a bit further. And when we think about online sales penetration, I've put it by category there. And remember, this is Christmas, including Black Friday, so they'll be slightly more elevated for this reporting period. But remember, that only measures the point at which the transaction was made. It doesn't tell you the customer journey to get to that transaction. So have they been in store before they transacted online, or have they been online before they transacted in store? But I think we're starting to get that sort of big. There was a big peak during COVID, drop back for 27 periods on a row. We're sort of getting a sort of flatten off with a slight amount of growth in that online. So that sort of highlights from there. If you go to the next bits, the two next slides are very fussy. Basically, this is sort of collected data from who's reported. And as I said to you, I think if you're reporting 3% or less, actually you're probably not beating inflation and you could probably push that number up. So although I split this to green arrows being positive and red arrows negative, I'll leave you that. I think there are some in here as well where you've got to go. And I know one private retail where they had a 10% drop on sales, but they actually created more margin in December. Good result in that respect. If you flick on again, these are slightly different data sets. So we do a data set taken from Snoop data. So this, I have a 28-year-old daughter, so I sort of know that what people do say and what people do is somewhat divorced, right? So this is actual spend data taken from Snoop combined with research data. Takes 125,000 users tracking actual spend, and I split this by category: top winners and top laggards in the next on the next slide. But again, these slides are going to be available, so you can go through them at your leisure. So if you click on two, because I just go to the laggards, I just wanted then to touch on what do we expect to happen economically going into next year. So given this, what are we thinking about happening? Things I would pick out here are consumer spend. We think it will increase. So we will spend a little bit more next year than we did last year, but we sort of always do that. But I reflect on the fact, if you look at that number, 1.8%, and you look at the inflation number, 2.4%, I think experienced inflation might be somewhat higher across this year than 2.4%. It's a debate I have with my chief economist, who's brilliant. You'll recognize that we are going to spend less than inflation. That means we are going to buy less stuff. And it's going to be a challenge to get into my wallet and get me to spend. There's another piece at the background of this, which is the savings rate for most consumers before COVID was running at 5%, and it's now running at about a pretty steady 10%, which is why when you look at consumer surveys, they say, look, I feel okay about my services, my finances, but I'm a bit nervous about the UK economy and how that might go and how that might impact me. The interest rates environment is higher for longer, but at least we're going in the right direction. And I'm not sure the exchange rate helps us very much, because with a relatively strong dollar, obviously that's going to feed through into some level of pricing cost increase. And that's before we've even started the conversation about what NI might do to those people who've got large people. So I think it's a pretty tough trading environment for most. And I think the amount of spend that you've got, if you're in a non-discretionary category, clearly you've got to spend that money. If you're in a discretionary category, I think you're fighting over a smaller pie in terms of a wallet. So in terms of, if you go into the next bit, sort of headlines from me, and I know you wanted just me to do 2 or 3 or 5 minutes or so on this, talked about consumer spend against inflation. I've talked about savings and sentiment. I think we also starting to see this continued shift to experience and away from product. I touched on the continued divergence I think I'm seeing in performance within categories. So I've just told you I think that health and beauty and value, for instance, have got a bit of following wind. But then why would Revolution Beauty and or Wilko? Revolution Beauty had a tough time. Wilko is no longer there. So you've got to execute brilliantly. So It's not all there, and I think there's also some divergence in performance in scale. So I think you can grow a smaller business, if you like, digitally quite quickly. If you're protecting market share, much tougher. In terms of winning strategies, I think we're seeing is scale players. So it's those businesses using some of their scale, their assets, their capabilities to monetize it. Think Next Total Platform, for instance. Um, Value, I think, is as we it's interesting when we speak to the ports, we're seeing more stuff coming in, but that's value stuff. So we're trading down. That's about conserving the cash that we've got. Um, the platforms, I think, so long as they're really well curated, and then I think you've got real opportunity to be in disruption. So I think things like Space NK, Shine, Newman, etc., have all got this ability to start to undermine the existing market share gains. And then finally, so what does that really mean for, I think, for the conversations we're having with clients? I mentioned the fact I think it's this year is all about great execution. I suspect that the conversation is much more about make sure that we're making margin and cash, not going for growth at any cost. So those days of fast growth with no profit, I think that lever's been pulled back. It goes into sort of almost boring stuff, which is about efficiencies of process. So we talk about the sort of 20-mile march. So just do 20 miles. Do a few things, do it brilliantly. Do 20 miles today, do 20 miles tomorrow, do 20 miles the next day. Don't try to do 40 just because the sun's shining, and 5 the next day. Don't get distracted. I think there's going to be some really interesting conversations about shortening critical paths to try and get it. How quickly can I get that great selling product to my customers and into market in front of them? And I think some of that piece around supply chain will also get a bit disturbed by what Trump may or may not do going into the States as well. Ultimately, I also think that there's going to be a real cautious approach to investment. So those bits where you're investing slightly ahead of your revenue curve. And for me, real focus on customers, not channels, because I think personalization is super important. What I think we generally find is the more frequent and smaller the purchase, the more important price is over quality. And the larger and less frequent the purchase, the more experience and sustainability become part of the conversation. But speaking to me as a customer, knowing who I am as a customer and appealing to me as a customer is going to be key to winning in this marketplace, I think. John, hopefully that was short enough, sharp enough, but some thoughts. And I'm fairly sure that
Have you
Clifton,
got any good news, Don? You're normally really positive.
yes, because I think you can win in this market, right? So I reflect on the fact, and though it's good news for some, I reflect on the old joke about the two students walking through the savannah, and they get chased by lions, and one stops to put on his running shoes, and his mate says, "Well, I don't know why you're going to doing that because you're never going to outrun the lions." And he goes, "I don't have to. I just have to outrun you." So I think it is a market share game, and there are going to be winners in this race, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great analogy to kick off the conversation with Clifton. And thank you for putting together that data. We will share the slides, and we will also connect you all up with Don if you want to ask him any follow-up questions or anything. He does a really good newsletter that goes around with sort of his musings on what's going on. And again, we can share the link where to sign up for that. So I suppose Clifton, just sort of starting there. How do you reflect? Because I know you run a really good operation, but what's your view of you had a really positive peak, and why do you think that was? And I suppose what's been the key for you winning online?
I could listen to Don for another hour and listen on those information and figures, and there's a lot to take away there. And some of that's brilliant because it's what I'm feeling and seeing right now before I go back on Black Friday and where we've been. But that's how we feel in 25 at the moment. Those are the approaches that we're taking. Those are the kind of messaging we're trying to get. Understand that customer journey, understand all the parts of personalization, and make sure all our processes are in sync. So all of that stuff's hitting us perfectly. I think there is room for market share and growth. Yeah, we like the disruptors. I love that term. That's what Natural Baby Shower started as, disruptor, because we were one of the first online retailers of baby goods in a market which was baby stores. And we love a baby store. It's not we don't want to be online and cross-channeled. We want that, but it was just we came in the time when e-com was just starting out and growing. So it was a great introduction to get behind that tech, and I'm a techie person, so to get behind that model, we had a good offering of products and a good introduction into the new market space using Frugal all those days ago, and getting ourselves into that position. So disruptors changing spec and moving around or changing the way things work. I think customers are always looking for that innovation and area. So really support some of that strategy there and some of that working. So I'd love to, like, when I get hold of those slides, take some more deeper in thought into that. So thanks, Don, for that. Black Friday, Cyber Monday, yeah, strong period for us. Completely stoked to get that off the a lot of work, a lot of prep for us. Black Friday starts, well, I think it's like a John Lewis ad, starts in January, February. No, we tend to kick off about May, June, and we start to work on all the promotion and all the stuff through, and all the work that we can do to kind of kick off that sales period. And for us, as you mentioned, Don, it is 3 months. And to be honest, it's now a quarter. It's October, November, December, and January. That's what we're saying. You know, there is this, it's a kind of win-win for the consumer for 4 months of the year. I don't know how we get back to shortening it, because we need to, because margin is key, and retailers need to get their money back in from that. So that period is long. So there's a lot of preparation and a lot of key work that goes into it.
And don't feel free not to share this if you don't want to, but I know in the past you've tested coming out of sale a bit earlier or stopping.
Yeah,
So what's
we
your
have.
view on that? And have you got any top tips that you're willing to share with people?
I think if you go against the market in kind of sale periods, you're just going to be a loser, because people are going to buy somewhere else. So we're all kind of pushing each other, which is bad for longer periods. But the consumer is the only winner, and the other winner is kind of like advertising costs, because that's where you're spending your money and getting less margin back. But I think for us, we tried coming out January before early, because we're just so like drained of sale periods, you know, November, December, Christmas sale, Boxing Day sale, January sale. And it's like, oh, we just want to end and get back to normality. Brands want to get back to normality. You know, we know the race to the bottom isn't good for certain products and brands, and it can destroy your brand. And we don't want to be in that game of chopping and price and losing margin and bringing. There's so much innovation in the baby industry as well that goes untapped, and you lose that innovation when you start to cut the price and stuff. So I know that we want to always get out the sale periods as early as possible, but if we have tried strategies leaving in mid-Jan, and then our sales just fall off a cliff for the end of Jan while other retailers are going. So
you can't swim against the tide.
No, I don't think so when it comes to sale periods and cheaper pricing.
I suppose this goes back to you having to make sure you plan the right proposition, the right promotion, so you can actually still maintain the margin. I'll come back to
John. Can I just add something on the pricing thing, which I think is maybe just worth thinking about, or a couple of things. One is, often when we talk about people about promotion, we say, so how does it work? What triggers it? And they go, well, either I've got excess inventory or I did it last year. And they go, so what do you do? And they go, well, we go 20% off. And you go, why do you do 20% off? And they go, because we've always done 20% off. And then they go, well, what happens? Well, some stuff shoots out the door, and then some stuff doesn't. And then what do you do? 40% off. Why 40? Because I've always done 40. And what we've found is actually the number is not so relevant, right? You can shift, actually, you could probably do 10%, not 20%, and you still get the same volume for quite often. So you're giving away some margin just by setting sort of blanket. So play with the discounts. The second bit I think we found for some retailers is you can shift as much volume in a very concentrated period of a sort of 4-day sort of customer directed, so your loyal customer directed event, rather than a 2.5-week period. So don't just play with the periods and the intensity of your promotional calendar as well as the percentages, because I think people are giving away margin both by and tainting their brands and their offers by extended sales periods and too deep discounts when they didn't need to give them.
I remember when Black Friday was a couple of days. Right?
Yep.
I remember when it wasn't Black Friday and it was the January sales. Right, it is, and I suppose for both agencies, I do completely agree with Clifton. Though I'm not with this isn't going to become a Google and Facebook bashing session. I do that too often. But the winners, if you look at the rising ad costs, the revenues of the ad platforms, them creating their own AI to make it even murkier of what is and isn't going on, the big winners in all of this are the ad platforms. So But I suppose that's one of the reasons we exist, is to try and help people work out exactly where to spend their money, and hopefully we can cut some gains out.
I agree, and I think Clifton makes a great point about what I heard was about agility, that ability. Like if the market's telling you one thing, that you've got to be able to follow it quickly, and therefore this ability to react is important. So if you decide you want to shift your price, how can you make your business so efficient you can do that really easily?
Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions in from Dave Anderson. And I wasn't going to get into is the high street dying, but WH Smith's, we can't ignore the news at the moment. Two-part question here is the high street dying, and is it moving more online? At your point before about the online, as I suppose it was massive in COVID for obvious reasons, it then sort of declined, and actually, depending on whose data you read, it seems to be picking back up and going in a positive direction as a percentage of sales. Is that going to continue? Is the high street dead? I suppose is the first question.
I would say no, it ain't dying, but yes, it is changing. So I think we're still in that place where more than 6 purchases out of 10 are transacted on the high street. So there are still more, depending on your category, there are still more transactions made in a store than not. And I still think for some retailers and for many brands, there's a point where a digital grow. I suggest you can grow a digital brand or a brand digitally or a business digitally relatively easy. I know it's really hard work, but at some point, I think you have to turn up in the real world. So
Clifton's got a shop as well. He's not all just online.
But I do think the hearts of the centers of our high streets, as we think about it, are changing. We've had an overcapacity, and it's shifting back. Shifting back.
I think that comes down to experience. I was going to say experience there. So if the experience in store is an experience, then you're going to enjoy that day out. Look, it's more hassle to leave your home. Not so it shouldn't be, but it feels more hassle to leave your home, park your car, get something, buy something, pick it up, come back. And if you can do that online easily, conveniently, it's a way up on whether it's environmentally more friendly, but that it probably is, because less carbon. But you're ending up in a situation there where your experience isn't that great on a regular product. But if you're going in to buy a bike, or in our industry, pushchair, car seat, something more with a bit more love and sentiment behind it, then that experience, I think, is still there in the high street.
And I also think about an infrequent purchase. So it might be of scale, but one that you're not doing all the time. I think there's an element, and I personally still think it's really hard to do inspiration online. People try to do it and they do it okay, but
have you not heard of TikTok, Don?
Yes, you get a bit, but there's a touch and feel. I think even for my daughter's generation, right? They still like to go touch, feel it, and experience it. They like to be inspired, I think.
I do think it's going to be the conversion, seeing what the younger generation do, and that whole thing of, oh, we're going into town to go shopping. I've got 2 teenage daughters, and they do want to go into town. There's a social element and all the other part of it, and getting out of the house. So I think it's going to be different. We're not going to get into guessing who's going to take over the real estate, because that's just we'll be all guessing that. Another question is coming in here is AI a savior for retail? That's a very broad question. All right. I suppose it'd be interesting. I know you love your tech, Clifton. Is AI going to help you? And if so, how?
I think we've only scratched the surface on it at the moment. I mean, I hear that statement a lot, but I'm finding it more back end helpful at the moment, just like streamlining ourselves, saving time, creating reports, projects, email writing, all of that stuff, just cutting time out of the business, which is great because we can focus on other areas. Front end, obviously, yes, with recommendations and customer journey and understanding that side, definitely really powerful. I think, where we've seen them, how we've seen that interact yet. We haven't really seen that, and I think there's the room for the disruptor. The people that get behind that a little bit and make that use that well, and and utilize that and make it a good experience, you know, and make something different, because it is a little bit, we were just saying earlier how much I suppose we talk about AdWords and spend with inside there. It used to be kind of like more of a trust thing, and you might recognize a retailer that you trust. Now it's really about price, because most of the retailers in that shopping engine are trusted anyway. They've been through filtering and Google kind of testing or whatever to get to that level. And then when they buy the product, you know, as long as the delivery's there, most delivery now is next day DPD, you know, or whatever. They're using a reputable company, Yodel or whoever, and that's going to come pretty quickly. So if they get their dispatch out, there's where are we moving away from, you know, different it's price. And it's price, and then how you deal with people in your e-com environment. But the capture in those AdWords there is price. So I think that's really one. But you know, a bit of caution is we need to. Well, for MBS, we've always been changing the way we do things and moving the way and looking at how we can make things more innovative and customer friendly and look at the new brands and give that new experience. So we'll continue definitely down that line, and it's great to hear that support. Hopefully that will be our success.
Don, what do you see in some of your clients, and who's innovating with AI well?
So I think so. I was with a big online retailer yesterday, and they were saying, look, AI is definitely helping them with search, which is what and supported search for their customers, so their customer experience when they're going through it, and also helping with creative content, so much richer contextualization of creative content. So I think it can be used there. We're definitely seeing it on those sort of mundane, repetitive tasks, like which none of us like doing, quite frankly, anyway. So why would you not get a machine to do it? Does it save retail? It doesn't. It's not a golden bullet, right? Some retailers will use it, will find big problems that they can solve with it, and it will give them an advantage because they will be able to find some efficiency, or they'll be able to create a better impact for their customers. I also think that it will help people, individuals, the people inside their businesses, to make better, more data-informed decisions with much greater groups of data. Because I still think someone said to me, does ChatGPT sort of rule the world going forwards, like take everybody's jobs? No, it doesn't. The person using ChatGPT, they win in the job market, right? So this is not the technology in and of its own. It's a golden bullet. This is the people who use it and use it well and apply it well. They get an advantage. Does that make sense?
So just a couple of, we're going to stay on. So if you've got time to stay on, Don and Clifton have agreed to stay on for a little bit, because I think there's loads more stuff we can unpack here. One thing we've seen from a lot of our clients, and most of our clients did well. I'd love to say it's down to our great team and great technology, but actually I think a lot of it is down to how they run their business as well. So if you took Sigma Sports, for instance, they're selling at one end £20,000 bikes, at another end they're selling energy gels and hydration kits and this, that, and the other, but they just operate their business really well. And I know their business, how they're passionate about customer service, they're passionate about their customers. So, and I know you're very similar, Clifton. One thing we were talking about before, I've had a look around Clifton's warehouse, and they take all the plastic out of all the packaging, and then they replace it with paper and cardboard before they send it to the customer, so they know it's getting recycled properly. Right. And I don't think many people sort of know that, but how you operate is core to your service. And how do we think, is that ultimately what's going to be the differentiators between the winners and the losers? What do we think, John? Or what do we think, Clifton? What do you think?
I think, I mean, it's a hard one, because we were eco since the start. We looked at sustainable products and to be as green and as best for the planet and best for baby as we could at the start. But over the years, we found that we were in the early years. I mean, we're now 17 years retail. But I think for the first like 5 years, we started using it, and then we started to hide it. Then we brought it back. We didn't want to hide it, but it just wasn't getting used. The sustainability wasn't on the menu. Now it's back. It was back massively, and it just seems to have taken a back road in the last year. And it's a real shame, because we were making headway. So I mean, I'd love to put, we want to put, and will do, put more behind the sustainable economy, and we'll have some new stuff coming this year on that method, and we'll continue to
Is this
push.
an announcement, Clifton?
Well, yeah, it's kind of circular economy, isn't it? It's like that second reusable, and we'll help instigate customers that buy from us to be able to resell their products back through a network, and that's a massive part for us because it gives customers the choice to browse products on our site and then also maybe buy it secondhand, but also when they buy stuff from us to be able to launch and sell that quickly for them. So we should help that market move and be more sustainable in that presence. So yeah, there's a kind of innovative thing that we are looking towards, and but we're at the crux of moving like the sustainability, and we feel that's really important. But things just take the market and the customer and the money that's available in disposable income. It does change people's thoughts, and people do. Being green is more expensive a lot of times with the product buying,
and is what you're
take away.
basically saying at the moment, because people have had the money in their pockets squeezed through inflation and that ultimately everything going on in the last couple of years, that they'd like to do green, but they're not doing green because it's more expensive. And is the challenge, we need to make green more affordable? Is that like the hard thing which we've got to do?
I don't think that kind of works because I don't know, like it
Or do
seems to
we
be
get rid of
easier
the
to cheaper.
or do we get rid of the non-green cheap stuff through, and that could be through legislation or taxation or whatever? Is that maybe a lever we could, and would people do that? Because I suppose it's quite funny. So my kids regularly go, we're going to go and buy second hand, and we'll go around the charity shops, and actually they're quite proud to say, I got this from the charity shop, which was never really a thing before, which is great. Right, more stuff's getting reused a lot, but then in the next hand, 3 boxes turn up from Shein, or they're into Primark and
Yeah,
buying
yeah, yeah,
10
yeah.
t-shirts for £1.
Exactly. Double
So
standing. And
it's
they don't mean to. It's just that it's just hard to focus. And I think the kind of double standards, we're all guilty of double standards, ordering quickly and fast, and yeah.
So, John, to make maybe a perspective, one, I can't see any evidence that we would pay more for the same product just because it's green.
Okay.
Okay, so
I think people do. Don't people do that?
If the same product just because it's green, I'm not convinced. There's this like
Okay.
people say they will, do they? I'm not so sure. The one bit I do think is really helpful about the sustainability agenda and the sort of green agenda is it's clearly the right thing to do, and it's requiring many businesses to ask themselves the question about what should we be doing what's the art of the possible if we had a more sustainable product. What would So I've never really understood, for instance, and I hope somebody answers this question, the toothpaste. That little cardboard box it comes in, like, has anybody found any other use for it than you open it and throw it in the recycling? Like, why does it even exist? I just really don't know. And yet,
is it obviously transportation and packaging? Is it protection against the tube being damaged?
But do you really need it?
No, you don't.
And that sort of, and once you start to force yourself to go like, what would have to be true for this to be, for us to run a circular economy? But I think that's really helpful for business, because I think it's requiring them to look at their business in a different lens and get to a different cost outcome.
If you think about one online documentary, David Attenborough, how quickly we got rid of plastic straws, right?
Yeah.
Amazing, right? And actually, everybody was like, what about the straw manufacturers? What about this? What about that? They just pivoted their business and now they're making different stuff, right? And we're all back to, but so I think the world and businesses can pivot and change. One question, sort of going back to Black Friday, and don't overshare if you don't want to, Clifton, but there's often a perception, we often have this conversation with, say, IMRG data and other things, is like, is it actually worth buying this customer in Black Friday, or are they going to be loyal, or are we just buying one transaction at a low margin? And that's often a big thing. So I was interested, because you don't think that's the case, Clifton, and over the years
I don't know, to certain segments of customers. So let's say we offer a wide range of products, and we do on our website, over 8,000, 9,000, whatever. So, and we obviously hit different buying cycles when you're pregnant or whether you've got a 3-year-old. And I think there are customers in that place, in that space, which aren't as beneficial for Natural Baby Shower's future as some of the customers, obviously. And yet some of the period of that sale, that activity, especially with Christmas coming up, it tends to be that gifting kind of market space. So we get a lot of sales in Black Friday period, and some of that customer isn't the right customer for Natural Baby Shower to be remarketing to. Doesn't mean it's the right. We were just talking about today. Doesn't matter that customer's actually. It's great that they bought from us, fantastic. But we just need to treat them differently afterwards. No, don't start chasing them for emails and marketing. Expect them to, because they're actually not interested. So we need to just understand them more. And once we understand them all, we can cut back on spend them 20 emails that cost us. Actually does cost quite a bit of money by the time you add it all up and put it together. So can we I don't like the word segment, because segment just throws people into it, and people tend to work in different segments at different times, and it's quite hard to run. But being agile would be maybe the other word, and being understanding would then say that, yes. And I think I've said to you before, John, that Natural Baby Shower generally has benefited well over the last 10, 12, 15 years of Black Friday or whatever, because we get an influx of sales and customers, and we are able to deal with them nicely because we do have a wide range of products, and we do treat the customer, and we do look for the journey, and we do a trial of that, plug in Natural Baby Shower, aren't we? But then you just end up with a whole period of customers that do come back, and you just seem to grow. We seem to grow off the back of it, and we've grown in stages. Yeah, we dipped back after Black Friday, but by June, August, we're kind of mirroring the Black Friday period that we were before. Yeah. So as a growing platform for Natural Baby Shower, perfect, but it's costly, and you've got to, and we've had Black Fridays where, and you mentioned, Don, earlier about profit. It's different, sales is vanity, profit is sanity. So we have to make sure that we are being profitable, and so we have much more eyes, and this is where the data and the graphs and Ask Bosco software and this kind of stuff makes us more agile and able to respond and act and keep our eyes on the spend and areas of it. Yeah. So chasing it is good, I think, but dealing with it and knowing what you're chasing. Just don't.
One thing we've been talking a lot about with our customers, and this I think will become even more important as people start thinking about getting in the summer when they're getting ready for Black Friday next year, is a lot of the time we look at sort of just like the year-on-year historical spend data, we look at seasonality trends, we look at all of this clever data stuff we've got, and a lot of that is in the Google platforms or in the Facebook platforms. But actually, I think some of the most valuable data everybody's got is actually in their own first-party customer data, and actually understanding, and it's criminal that we're all chasing this new customer all the time and paying Google for it, when actually the money might be under our feet in our existing customers, but actually have we invested the time and effort to put them into dynamic cohorts to understand, well, how's best to talk to this customer? How's best to talk to that customer? The level of personalization we're doing now on the websites using AI, so I see something different to Don, to Clifton, is really clever. But actually, with the power of AI and machine learning on our own first-party data, we could be doing so much more cool, clever stuff to inform our upper funnel, say, display marketing. Or what is the tactic, or even rebranding, right? If we actually got the right brand for our most valuable customers, right? So I'm just conscious of time. We've probably got 4 minutes, right? So if we said, right, what are the? I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, so you're on the spot. This is going to be off the cuff now. So we didn't do this in the rehearsal, but I was just thinking. 3 things people should focus on to have a good 2025. So we've got loads of online retailers, loads of people who are agencies who advise online retailers on here, and there'll be loads of people watching live on LinkedIn and watching the recording. So 3 things that they can focus on to have a really good 2025. Who wants to go first?
I'll do one, Dom. Straight away, and that is, I would say, just concentrate on look at your marketing efficiency ratios. So where are you spending and what are you getting back off it? I'd have a look at good idea. Where are you channel based, and just keep an eye on those costs. So really, 2025, obviously with margin say depletion and higher costs in all areas. Keep real strength on your MER. That's one of the things we're looking at very carefully.
Don?
I would really focus on doing a few things brilliantly. Don't over initiative.
Good.
Yeah. Any tips on what those top few things are?
I think it's going to be different for different businesses, but I think we've talked about agility and the speed with which you can make a decision. Can you speed up the way in which your business either stops doing something or starts doing something and completes it? So efficiency of process comes into that. I think that's one area particularly that I would look at.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing, we've been talking to a lot of different customers, is understanding and the value of brand. Right, and as a performance people, often we're all fighting over the bottom end of the funnel. But actually, I think over the last 10, 15 years, some of this is our fault as performance marketeers, is because you spend £1 to get £10, and we all stop feeding the Google monster.
That's the PMAX, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's like, but what is the value of your brand?
Mm.
And are people going to come to you because they like, respect, trust you? Even if, and that's, I suppose, the game you've got to play, isn't it? You've got the same price as the other people, but do they trust your brand? And
Yeah, I mean, and to finish, ecom, like Don said as well, like ecom is so, you've got to do everything well. You could do everything really, really well, and then just send too many review emails at the end of the process, and everyone's going to go, well, God, that's really annoying. I got on my nerves. You've done all the service good. Everything's quite quick to forget, so you have to make sure that you're just supporting the customer in all the way. And I think just making sure that communication is open and easy for customers, and yeah, as standing out in all areas has got to be done through ecom. There's no secret to ecom, is it? It's got to do everything good. Everything's got to be done well.
I think that's a great point, Clifton. I did think that sort of Virgin sort of strapline that he came up with, that they ran their business with, is useful to remember, which is brilliant basics, magic moments.
Yeah,
and doing the basics well is actually really hard.
It is.
And that comes down to people, that comes down to training, that comes down to process, that comes down to partners.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, not so much the people on this call, maybe some of them listening on LinkedIn, think that ecom's easy. Running ecom well is hard. Really hard. So
good stuff.
Good stuff. Well, thank you very much, Jack. And just if you thought you recognised Don, and you're wondering what the things on the wall were, right? Don represented the GB as an Olympic hockey player.
Ah, brilliant.
What was your highlight of playing Olympic hockey, Don?
It's very unfair, John, because he knows that I think so. Basically, the first game we played against Egypt, I like to think was my father's proudest moment, as when I got on the pitch and became an Olympian. Unfortunately, 15 minutes later, I'd run over an Egyptian, and I was asked to have a little sit down by the umpire to think about what I'd done.
Honestly.
So I went from Olympian to sent off. So, and when we went back and watched the videos that we'd recorded of the highlights, because you only get your name on TV for hockey if you score a goal, if you get sent off. My father, the camera managed to pick out my father, and he was just going.
Brilliant. Love it.
Very unfair, Edmund.
Sorry. We'll have to get some dirt on Clifton for next time. But no, look, gentlemen, absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining. Thank you to everybody who's come along. We will send some notes. We'll connect you all together, and that was really useful. If you are, we'll also send a link. If you want a free media plan for 2025, we can connect you up and give you one of those. If you want one of those, we'll show you how in the follow-up email. But have a great week. Have a brilliant 2025, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Clifton.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.